Very good evening to you, and welcome to this Champions League special here on Independence Live on a Tuesday night. It is match day 2 for Celtic up against the yellow brick wall in Scarf. So they say anyway. We've only got a wall in Scotland. They can afford a yellow wall. Wow. We're on until 7 o'clock. Joined tonight by my wonderful co-host Regan Stevens. How are you?
Michael, I'm doing really good. I'm looking forward to this match tonight. Celtic, it should be a very good match. So now I'm looking forward to previewing the game.
And I'm delighted to say that one of our colleagues, and you've probably heard him a lot of times on Indie Live Radio, but I'm delighted to hear tonight James Eric to look ahead to the game.
Hi there, Michael. Hi, Stephen, Regan. It's absolutely super duper to be back on the locker room, I have to say. Although I was a wee bit disappointed there when the show was starting. I never heard the music. I don't know if you're not playing the music anymore.
Oh no, we do play the music, but that's only for the Friday show and stuff.
Right.
We do a kind of different introduction for the European games.
Right.
But well spotted, James. Well remembered as well. So thanks
Even
for
though I'm getting on a bit, Michael, I can still pick up on things.
yeah. Thanks for joining us anyway. But on till 7 o'clock, we'll get the team news about 6:45, I think, when it comes out tonight. Get your comments coming in. I see there's a few comments already on Facebook and Twitter as well. So we're just going to talk about the game. So James, we haven't had you on for a wee while, and I can't remember the last time that you were on the show with myself talking about Scottish football, but talking about Celtic in general. I don't think you've been on since Brendan Rodgers has come back. But anyway, he has come back and they won the double and all that. What do you think of Celtic so far, James, this season?
They've been absolutely fantastic. Better than I expected, I have to say. But I think that is to do with the job that was done during the transfer window. I was a bit worried when Matt O'Reilly was sold. And I know that, there was a lot of talk about Arnie Engels, being a target and stuff like that. But I've often found over the years that people start talking about targets for Celtic and they just kind of disappear, But as always, I went and I did a wee bit of research on the boy, and I was quite impressed by what I've seen, searched them out on YouTube and stuff like that. So, and I had seen him a couple of times. I do occasionally watch German football on television, and I had seen him a couple of times, in games on TV. And to be honest, I personally don't think we're missing Matt O'Reilly with Engels being in the team.
That's it. Yeah, I think James is actually mind rigging my memory as well, because I was just talking to someone yesterday, Regan, about do Celtic fans miss Matt O'Reilly, and I think James summed it up nicely there in terms of, well, he's a good player, but not really, because we've got Celtic's got players that can slot into that position, like Ingles and all the rest of it. So, but I'll ask you that question, Regan. Do you miss Matt O'Reilly? I know he's a brilliant talent, and they're going from strength to strength. But do you really miss him? Because I feel as though that when Celtic has a player lined up, it's like it's like a robot basically, because they go on and do the same job as Matt Riley, and then he leaves and somebody comes in and does the exact same job as Ingles and whatever. So Regan, what's your thoughts?
I think what James was saying there about the fact that the Celtic board have spent a lot of money. I think it was 13 million they spent on Engels, and I think they brought in a Bernardo as well, who's been great as well. So I think the fact that they've brought in those players to help Brendan Rodgers, I think he said yesterday, this is the most he's felt backed by the club since he's been here. So I think it just shows you that he's ready for a very good campaign. And I think that this is the stage where Celtic want to be. And like you said, I think, of course, any team's going to miss the quality of Matt, but I think Celtic have done very well to replace him.
Yeah, no, exactly. James' brilliant performance in Sakagi from a Celtic point of view could have been 10 at the end up. But obviously, you're playing against Borussia Dortmund and on back door tonight. It's going to be a difficult opponent, especially away from home and the yellow wall and all the rest of it.
Yeah, but do you know what? I know there's a lot said about the yellow wall, right? And it is pretty impressive. If you watch any of their football games when they're at home, it is an impressive sight. But if you think about it, Celtic Park with a full house is every bit as impressive, in my personal opinion. Now, I've never actually been in the Dortmund Stadium, live for a game. So, I know that it might feel different when you watch it on TV from being there and experiencing it. But I think the Celtic players, I don't think they'll be overawed by it. I think what they have to do is actually not think that they're at home, if you know what I mean, and become, sort of, we have to do really, really well here because the fans are right behind us. Because it's not really going to be the fans that are going to be right behind them. Although, in saying that, I think however many Celtic fans are in the ground tonight, they will certainly be heard.
Reagan, Celtic, Borussia Dortmund won 4-2 on Friday night. I'm sure we'll get into the debate about should Scottish clubs play on a Friday night instead of the weekend so that they can get ready for the game. They're lying fifth in the league at the moment. Meanwhile, Celtic has scored 16 goals in 3 games in 3 different competitions. And I know like the levels are slightly different, but you must take confidence going into the game tonight.
I think you've got to take confidence well because even though Vickers is not fit, I think even that Trusty looks as if he's a player as well. And the fact that Celtic have spent $6 million on him, it just shows that Brendan Rodgers has got that trust from the board as well to really back him because this guy's a backup player and they've spent £6 million. So you need to say fair play to them for doing that. And I think when you look at through the team, I mean, this team's already beat Rangers this season. They've beat Hearts. They beat St Johnstone 6-0 at the weekend. So they've got a lot of confidence as well. I think the fact they've got off to a great start at Celtic Park with the 5-1 victory against the Slovakian team, that'll stand them in good stead as well. And I think the fact that Brendan Rodgers said that this is the best place that he feels, I think now he'll say that to the players, and then the players will surely be confident that they can do it.
James, I know that you didn't watch the pre-season games. You only saw the highlights as well. But in terms of like Celtic style, it's been slightly different this season because last season it was very slow and passive as well. But you know when I saw the games against, especially the big two, Man City and Chelsea, you saw the style kind of changing. It was more kind of like in your faces, and it was opposite of passive as well. Do you see any kind of like changes apart from Maeda running from a ball when Celtic 6-0 up with 2 minutes to go?
The Duracell man, yeah. No, I did see the games pre-season, Michael. So I was quite pleased that I did get to see them. I didn't think I was going to be able to see them, but I managed to get something sorted out so I could watch them. And I think the last season, I think a lot of the players didn't know Brendan Rodgers. Obviously Callum McGregor knew him. And some of the other players who may have, sort of played with him or played against teams that he had managed down south would have known of him. But the majority of the Celtic players didn't know him. And I think getting his ideas across took last season to really put into place. And I think that was shown by the pre-season games, as you said, against Chelsea and Manchester City. They were bloody good, if you pardon my French. They were very, very good. And yes, you could argue, but Chelsea and Man City didn't really put out, their full strength teams. And okay, that I accept that. But there's an old adage in football: you can only beat what's in front of you, whether that's the top team, the second team, the third team. And these boys that are at Manchester City and are at Chelsea and are at Dortmund, they are a class above a lot of teams. And to a certain extent, they're probably a wee bit of a class above Celtic. So Celtic are going to have to punch above their weight. And Graham Duthie has sent me a wee message. It's great to see me. He talks to me now and again. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. I think he's losing it. I think it's what they call early onset dementia, Graham. I'd go and see my doctor if I was you.
Joe's commenting on Facebook. Thanks for watching, Joe. He said, "Let's get a result tonight. Hail, as well." Yeah, I'm going to go back to that point, Reagan, like what James Meg and all that. Okay, Celtic beat Chelsea and Man City in pre-season, and I know that people are saying that, well, Chelsea and Man City was 2 weeks behind and they didn't play a full strength team. But I mean, it's still Man City. It doesn't matter who plays for the team. That name and that amount of money shouldn't be on the same park as Celtic. Let's be honest, But were you delighted that, even though there wasn't anything to win on the games, but were you delighted that Celtic put up a performance and a show and to get the win as well?
Aye, because I think it shows the squad that they're really able to compete at that level. And it's like you said, it's like, okay, it might not be Man City's first team. I think the only one that was playing was Haaland because
Haaland, yeah.
he didn't qualify for the Euros. So I think in terms of that, like Man City's B team is still a strong team. I mean, think of the players that Celtic have bought for Man City before, like Paddy Roberts and Boyata and Frimpong and stuff like that. So Man City's got a strong B team. So I think you need to take confidence from that. And I think the players overall this season, like James was saying, because they've had one season with Brendan Rodgers, I think they've benefited from that. They've benefited because now they know that the style of play. Now they know what Brendan Rodgers wants from them. But I want to ask you, James, right? Do you believe that Brendan Rodgers' football is better, or do you believe Ange Postecoglou's football is better? Because I've seen a lot of this on different podcasts and that, and people are asking the question.
Well, to be honest with you, I don't really think that either one is better than the other. I think they're both got their benefits. With Ange, obviously, it was like basically it was everybody goes at it, and we batter this team, we get the goals, and they're on the front foot from the off. With the way that Brendan's playing, yes, they're on the front foot, they're attacking teams, they're going for it, but they're also able to defend. And let's be honest, under Ange, we did lose quite a few goals because defensively we're still a little bit ropey, And I suppose you could possibly argue that, the defenders that we had with Ange Postecoglou, in inverted commas, were actually better than the defenders, that Brendan Rodgers had. Because let's be honest, Liam Scales, probably 99% of Celtic supporters didn't want Liam Scales to return from Aberdeen. Personally, I wanted him to come back from Aberdeen because I remember watching him, coming up the ranks and thinking to myself, there's a player in there, but I didn't see him as a central defender. I thought he would be a left back.
Reagan, I'll ask that question back to you because, funny enough, somebody asked me the same question. I think it was the radio I was listening to on Saturday night, and I think it was Packy Bonner, and it was Packy Bonner and Alan Preston. It was on the the show after the game, and they were talking about basically that the same question that you've asking James about. Do you think this Brendan Rodgers team would beat Postecoglou's team? Now I know it's dead early because we're only 7 games into the season and there's still a long way to go. But what do you think of it, Regan?
I think in terms of Brendan Rodgers' side, what I would say was with Brendan Rodgers, he's a bit more measured than Ange Postecoglou. Even if you watch Ange Postecoglou with Tottenham at the minute, they're so easy on the eye, but also they play a very high line. And what people tend to forget is that, see, when Ange Postecoglou played with Celtic for the first 10 matches, I think he lost something like 6. I think he lost 3 out of his first 7 matches. So people were starting to doubt whether Ange Postecoglou was being too adventurous. But I think eventually something that he did and that ultimately led to success was he was able to adapt to the situation. And I think I would probably just edge Brendan Rodgers football because in what I've seen this season, I just feel like he's got a really good balance between attack and defence. But that's something I want to ask you and James in terms of, see, like this match against Dortmund tonight, right? Surely Brendan Rodgers is not going to play attacking football for the whole night because he knows that Dortmund are a team that are really good. I mean, they got to the Champions League final last year and they were so unfortunate not to win that as well. So I just don't want them to be too adventurous because also you want to keep the trapdoor shut as well because you don't want to be too open.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with you 100% there, Regan. But I think it's a fine balance, isn't it? You know, regardless of what league you're playing in, it's a fine balance between attacking and defending. And every team has to be able to do both of those things in equal measure. Obviously, when we're playing in Europe, generally speaking, we're up against far superior players. So therefore, the possibility of them being able to hurt us is greater than it is in the domestic league. But I think what you'll probably find is that I don't buy into all that stuff that was in the papers, you know, about Dortmund are exploding and they're all fighting and all the rest of it. That's just a load of rubbish. I don't believe any of that crap, to be perfectly honest with you. I think you're going to see the real Dortmund tonight when they're playing against Celtic, and it's being able to make sure that we're secure at the back when we're attacking. If we have to attack, let's attack, but let's make sure we've got players staying behind so that if we lose the ball and Dortmund run at us, we're going to be able to defend.
I'm going to come back to Graham's point in a minute about Kasper Schmeichel, but Regan, and I know what you mean, but like I know I always talk about on the show like taking the game in stages, and I know that we were talking about Celtic and Falkirk, and it's a million miles away from Borussia Dortmund, but Celtic's in the Falkirk position tonight, if you know what I mean, in terms of Celtic needs to take this game in stages in terms of 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half time, and keep it tight for the first 10 minutes of the second half. I know that's a lot to ask, and it's brilliant if football was plaguing paper, but it's not, Regan. But do you think Celtic could kick the game in stages?
I think they need to because I think if they try and overplay, then Dortmund are the perfect team that Celtic could play because they don't want to overexploit themselves. I think they need to try and manage the game. Of course, we Celtic have got the players on the break like a Kyogo and a Kun to really open up the defense of Dortmund. So I think they need to pick and choose their moments because you don't want to overdo it in terms of playing out. I know Brendan Rodgers tries to play it, but I think and matches like this, you need to be a mixture of both of them, and you need to also, and also when you're doing that, you need to pay respect to the opponent and go, well, you don't want to end with a bloody nose too early. You know what I mean? Because if you try and play out too early, then that could really exploit you in the first 2 or 3 minutes. Then it becomes an uphill battle straight away, Michael.
James, Glenn was asking you a question in the chat about because we haven't spoke to you since Joe Hart's retired from the game, and that I think he's a breath of fresh air when you listen to his punditry on the TV. I don't mean Glenn, I mean Joe Hart. But what do you think of Kasper Schmeichel? Is he an upgrade on Joe Hart?
First of all, I have to correct you, Michael. Graham's punditry is wonderful. You know, I will not have you doing him down, okay? But to get to the Schmeichel Hart question, yeah, I suppose he is in a way a little bit of an upgrade. But a lot of that, in my opinion, has got to do with who his dad was. You know, I'm old enough that I can remember Kasper Schmeichel's dad and his heyday and his pomp. And by God, what a goalkeeper he was, you know. And every time I watch Kasper Schmeichel, whether it's now at Celtic or whether it was when he was at Leicester or whatever, I could see his dad in him, you know. And he does things that, to a certain extent, is maybe a wee bit braver than Joe Hart, you know. And he certainly, I feel, a bit more comfortable when the ball's being crossed at him and stuff like that. You know, Joe sometimes, for me, sat back a wee bit too much. You know, he didn't really command the area the way that Kasper commands the area. But then in saying that, he's almost commanding half of the pitch these days, isn't he, Kasper Schmeichel? The way that Celtic are playing.
Reagan, how do you? And I know you said that we've spoke about. In fact, I think you said that a few weeks ago that Joe Schmeichel was a kind of upgrade on Joe Hart. But what's your thoughts on that?
I think he definitely is, and I think I know James has been at Celtic Park over his time, and there's been a lot of games this season, James, where I think Schmeichel could have had a deck chair, you know, so he's possibly going to be the most warranted he's been since he's been at Celtic this evening, because there's a lot of times when he was playing Hearts and playing Motherwell this season where you sort of feel where he's not really been worked properly, but I think he's going to have to be on his game, and I think I read somewhere, Michael, that his dad's going to be in with the Celtic fans tonight, so it's going to be great for him to see what Celtic supporters are like. So, and no, I'm with James. I just feel more confident. That's no disrespect to Joe Hart, but I just feel like he's a more accomplished goalkeeper in terms of he can move the ball with his feet. He can also play a very good pass. Like there was a pass he played a few weeks ago where it split the whole defence. Kyogo played a pass and then somebody scored from it. So I think that's what the kind of things that we were trying to do. But I think he, as well on these nights, and I'm sure Brendan Rodgers is saying to him, but I think we also need to try and see when he's. This is something that used to frustrate me with Joe Hart was Joe Hart used to play the ball very quick, and I feel like see on these European nights you need to be able to slow the game, manage the game, because if you watch like Manchester United when they're playing Man City, they'll try and slow up the game, and everybody moaned about that Manchester City. They always try to slow the game down against, well, like say Barcelona, but that's what these teams do in Europe. They're savvy. That's how like Man City end up winning, because they play the. I'm not going to call it the dark arts, but that's what they do.
They play the percentages.
Yep.
You know what I mean? They know, as you said earlier about game management, and they know when to slow the game down. They know when to speed the game up, And let's be honest, top goalkeepers, no matter what team they play for, top goalkeepers will always have periods when things are going to be quiet. And you know they're a top goalkeeper because the minute something happens and they react to it and they make a great save or whatever, you know that they're switched on. And goalkeepers, pretty much more than almost any other football player on a field, have to be switched on.
Am I right in saying, guys, that the most Casper Schmeichel had to be called into action with Falkirk this season in the Cup?
Yeah. From what I've watched of the games anyway, I would say that would be true.
Yeah,
before we get back to talking about the game tonight, I guess thought I would ask you guys as well. In terms of like Casper Schmeichel, Joe Hart, and Adam Ida coming up to Scotland, do you think that helps the Scottish game? Because like we know that down the road the neighbours hasn't got any time for Scottish football, but it's not until they come up to Scotland, they experience it, and it puts Scottish football on the map.
Well, I suppose to a certain extent you could probably argue 2 points here. In terms of the goalkeepers, in inverted commas, they're at the end of their career, so to speak. So they're, coming up to Scotland and they're finishing off their careers. Adam Ida's slightly different in as much as he's still got quite a career ahead of him. So from his perspective, it might have been a bigger gamble. But I think Adam Ida knew that he was more likely to play games for Celtic than he was for Norwich. And I have to put my hand up and say that I was never really that impressed by Adam Ida when he was at Norwich. But by the same token, he didn't really play that often either for Norwich, and I remember watching games when he would come on with like 5 minutes to go. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think any player, unless something spectacular happens, can come on with 5 minutes to go in a game and change the game. They need to, they need to get into the game, and it can take them 5-10 minutes to get warmed up into a game.
Yeah, Reagan, I don't hear this phrase very often in football, but I'm going to use it tonight. He's a good sub to bring on, because I remember the game at Ibrox when it put Celtic, what was it, 3-2 up, and Celtic lost a goal in the last kick of the ball. But I mean, it was he came on and they scored a goal, but he made it look easy, but because am I right in thinking he had his back to goal, so he still had a lot to do?
He did, Michael. And I said to you a few weeks ago, I feel like he was the big reason that Celtic won the league last year. Because if you look at when O was on the bench towards the start of the season, Brendan Rodgers didn't really trust him to come on. But then if you look at like the Rangers match, the match between the end of the season, he picked Adam Ida over Kyogo at some points. And I think he never did that with O. He always stuck with Kyogo. So I think Brendan Rodgers knows that he's got a proper player there with Adam Ida. So I don't know whether he might change it up tonight, because Adam Ida for me, boys, is a kind of a target man. Maybe that's the kind of player Celtic are needing tonight, where they might need to hold the ball in, because as much as Kyogo's a great goal scorer, James, Michael, he's not very good at holding off defenders, and I think it might be a long night for him.
No, I think you're right there. For me personally, I would start Ida, just for the very reasons that you said there, Regan. And then, depending on how the game's going, depending on how the game's going, if it's like 1-1, 2-2 or whatever, and you've got like 5 or 10, 15 minutes to go, get Kyogo in there and buzz around those defenders of Dortmund, because they'll have got comfortable with a big target man, and they'll have got used to how to manage him. And then suddenly they get this wee guy on, maybe even have the two of them on the pitch. There you go. There's a bit of a radical solution for Brendan Rodgers put the two of them on, as long as, he does not too tired, of course.
Regan?
I think that would be the perfect option. I mean, I don't know if I'd play two of them, but I would definitely go with James when I'd play Edith, because I just feel like his physicality might hold off the defenders in it, and then that means that people like Rio and Engels can really try and get on the ball, because I think if you watch Kyogo against the bigger oppositions, because they've got the majority of the ball, he's kind of chasing shadows for the majority of the night. But I can use Scotland as a good example. See a few years ago we had like I don't know, say we had like somebody up front, but then they had like, but then since you got Diggs up front, Diggs is a kind of physicality that he'll buy you throw-ins, he'll buy you a corner kick where you can then that gives skills, it gives Trusty something to hang on to, because I think sometimes we need to give these guys a break in terms of what a match is 90 minutes, so you don't want those guys to get too tired either.
I think as well, James, you raise a good point as well, because this game's away from home. It's going to be a full house and a brilliant ski game. It's going to be more physical in terms of what the game's Kyogo has been used to, kind of like in European competition, and obviously your bread and butter in Scotland, because it's going to be more physical as well. And I can recall a game. I think it was last season. It was on the park 2 minutes, and they won Celtic a good foul. If ever such a good word as a good foul. So that, and there's a good link up man as well.
Yeah, I think it's, as I said earlier, it's all about balance. A great result for Celtic tonight would be a draw, in my humble opinion.
Yeah.
When the sections were drawn, I've seen a lot of people talking about 9 points would see Celtic, into the next stage in the tournament. Personally, I think it's 12 points, minimum 10. And if they don't get that, I think they would have to go into that. Is it a two-legged playoff? I think it is, if you're not in that sort of top section. But to get into that top section, I think Celtic would need to get 12 points. So if they can pick up points away from home, single draw points, and win the home games, which I think they're more than capable of doing, looking at the teams that are coming to Celtic Park, then I can see Celtic going through into that top, qualification, which would be absolutely superb, because let's be honest, when it comes to Europe, we've not done very well for a long time. And as supporters, we need that to, give us a lift.
What do you think of the new format of the Champions League, James?
To be honest with you, when I read about it, that it was going to change, I was like, oh my God, what the hell are they doing, But having looked at it and read a bit more about it, I think it will be a good thing for it, because you're going to get more games, so there's more, more money coming in, but you're going to have probably a better chance of getting into the next step than under the old system. So I think for and I hate to use the word the expression "we teams," but for we teams like Celtic and Slovan Bratislava and all the rest of it, they need to have that extra push to get them on to the next stage. And if they get on to the next stage, then when it comes next summer, for instance, and they're looking to bring in players, if they can say to players that are potentially going to come to Celtic Park, well, you know what? We got to the last 16 of the Champions League last year. We're aiming to get to the quarterfinals, or the semi-final. You've got to put in front of people plausible goals. And if you can do that and you can back it up because you've done it in the past, then players will come. They're not going to like having to go up to Ross County in the middle of January or something like that. Of course they're not. But the way that Celtic are set up now with the players that they have, they could easily put out a team on a Saturday that is completely different from the side that would go and play in Europe. And one of the great signings that they've made, in my opinion, only cost £1 million. Luke McCown is a super player. I watched him when he was playing for Dundee, and I thought, every time I saw him playing for them, I thought, boy, that boy is a football player. I didn't know at that point in time, I didn't realise that he was a Celtic fan. I only discovered that after he signed for Celtic. But in terms of being a football player, I always knew he was a great player. And when I heard that they were going to sign him, and I seen that they got him for like £1 million, I thought, oh, what a signing. What a signing. And I think he's proven that in the league, when he's come on.
Do you think as well, Jim, that I know that he's only a few weeks into his Celtic career and he's shown up well the time that he come on as well. And Callum McGregor, let's hope he's at Celtic for years to come, because he's a good captain and he was a good player for Scotland as well. But do you think Luke McCown could be a future captain at Celtic?
I suppose so. But then, at the end of the day, unless somebody doesn't have any leadership quality at all, right, then they're never going to be a captain in any team, regardless of the sport. But I think I'm right in saying that Luke McCown captained Dundee, didn't he?
Yeah.
Maybe not all the time, but I can remember seeing him wearing a captain's armband when he was playing for Dundee. So he's obviously got that leadership ability. But as you say, obviously, we'd love to see Callum playing there until he's 90 and, doing the business. We know in reality that's not going to happen. But yeah, I could see Luke McCown being a guy that could pick up the armband.
Reagan mentioned it early on, James, and I had my doubts for most Celtic fans when you heard Brendan Rodgers at the press conference on Friday to say Carter Vickers was out the game at the weekend, but you had a wee sneaky feeling that he would be out tonight as well. How big a loss would that Carter Vickers not been in the team? He's not even travelled with the squad, because I thought he would get travelled with the team just to support the Celtic tonight. But how big a loss would that be, James?
Last year, it would have been catastrophic, in my opinion. This year, not so much, because Trusty is exactly as his name says. He is trusty. Again, when I knew that Celtic were interested in him, and as I do this all the time when Celtic are going to sign players, I go and if I don't really know anything about them, I go and I look for them and I study them and I see what they're doing and I get my own opinions on it, and then I make up my mind whether I think they'll be good or not. And I remember watching it was the American Cup, like the American Euros tournament there that they played recently, and I watched a couple of the USA games, and he was very, very good, and I'd seen him at Sheffield last year as well, and I thought, that boy's a good player, but I didn't think that he would be signing for Celtic. But I thought he was a good player. But when I read that he was coming to Celtic and I went and did a wee bit more research, I thought, yeah, he's going to be a very good signing for us. The odd thing is, of course, that both him and Scales are left footers. I don't know if you knew that, but obviously on Saturday, Trusty was playing on the right-hand side of the defence, but it didn't seem to bother him. Sometimes when somebody is either right-footed or left-footed, they can't play on the opposite side.
Regan, I know that we were talking about Carter Vickers, a big miss for the Celtic team tonight, but do you think that in terms of it should be 11 men doing the job on the park for Celtic, because they would need the whole entire team, because you're playing against a top class team tonight?
Yeah, you need everybody to stand up, Michael. That's not something I've been able to do, but you need everybody to stand up and and be able to do it, because you don't want some like on these big nights. You need people to shoulder that responsibility and be able to show that they can be able to play that level. I mean, what um, I remember a few years ago, Rangers played in the Champions League and they got beat by 7 goals to 1. And you don't want that. You want to go out there, even if you do get beat, you want to go out there and go, well, it was a 3-2 or a 4-2, and we competed well, we done well. It was just a case of a bit unlucky. You want to be that team where everybody knows you're going to be able to prove that you're up to that level. You don't want to be the kind of whipping boys, as you would say, because you want to be able to showcase your talent. And okay, Brendan Rodgers wants to win the treble, but he also wants to showcase that he's a good talent for European football as well.
James, Brendan Rodgers was talking about the game yesterday. I don't know if anybody saw the press conference, but basically he was saying that we are excited about the game. We got off to a good start, and we're looking to bring our game to the next level. It's been talking about the game tonight. It'll be a tough game. They are fantastic team. And support, but we're looking forward to the game, and that's the thing, James, as well, because we always talk about the levels that Celtic or Rangers or Hearts might face in Europe in terms of when they play maybe St Johnstone at the weekend. No disrespect to St Johnstone, but and maybe St Johnstone fans would say the same thing about when they play Celtic, but it's all saying on football. You can only beat who's in front of you.
Yeah, and the only way to get to the levels that you have in the top European countries and the top European teams is to be playing in the likes of the Champions League, on a regular basis, and you have to progress. And that was the problem for so many years with Celtic. We were getting into the Champions League, but there wasn't any progression. I mean, the last time when we got into the last 16, brilliant. The thing is, you should have kicked on from there, but we didn't kick on from there. Lots of different reasons why we didn't kick on, primarily to do with the recruitment. But, you really have to. That's why I think this time round, the backing that Brendan got in the summer transfer window there is crucial. And I think the fact that we've got the likes of Engels coming into the team he's not really a direct replacement, in my opinion, for Matt O'Reilly, but he's a player who is making the Celtic supporters not forget Matt O'Reilly, but, it's not like, oh, I wish we still had Matt in the team, because Arne Engels has just come in there and it's like he's been there for years.
Yeah, that was my point I made earlier on, Reagan, about Matt O'Reilly, because it's like robots. I know that's a terrible comparison, but it's like one skips out the team, the other one skips in the team, but the one that's actually come into the team knows exactly what their job should be.
Yeah, and I think that's what Brendan Rodgers has got there. Like, if somebody gets injured, like Bernardo and Rio, then McGregor can step in there with, like James was saying, the boy we bought from Dundee. So, like, everybody knows them jobs. And look at, I mean, the boy came on the other day. I don't know if you guys seen it, but I mean, the ball he put through for that Vale to then do a wee flick, then for Ida to score. I mean, I'm just glad it wasn't offside, because it was one of the best goals I've ever seen for a long time. I mean, it was brilliant.
I cannot disagree with that. You've just summed up exactly what I thought when I was watching the game. Immediately I thought, oh God, I hope he's no offside. Because when he made the flick back for Ida, you're thinking, oh, he's gone too soon. But then, obviously, when it's looked back at, he is onside. But it's one of those situations, there. It's class. That's the only word to describe it, is class. If you saw that in a La Liga game, a Bundesliga game, a League One game, or the Italian leagues, you'd be going crazy about it. If you seen it in the Premier League in England, you'd be going crazy about it. But the fact that it happened in Scotland, it's almost like it goes whoosh, right over everybody's head, you know?
Yeah. Just to let you know that we'll be back on at 10 o'clock tonight with the post-match show. And good to keep your comments coming in. Also, we're on first tonight covering the Rangers game and the Hearts game as well. And obviously, we'll be back on Friday and Sunday. I don't know what time we're on Sunday, Reagan, because it's weird kickoff times for the Rangers game. It's at 8 o'clock on the Sunday night. It's because of the Scottish run in Glasgow, and that's why it's 8 o'clock. But we'll let you know what time we're on it, because I don't know myself at the moment. So we'll get back to the game in hand tonight. But Borussia Dortmund against Celtic in the Champions League, and we're just waiting for the team news to come out. It should be out any second now. We're on until 7 o'clock. But as I say, if the team lines are just out after 7, we'll hang about until we give you the team news, and then we'll be off to watch the game, and then we'll be on at 10 o'clock tonight. James, good. Come back to your point earlier on about Ida. I think if Brendan Rodgers is watching this, but I'm sure he won't be. He's watching the plane on the way back. I think that's quite a good shape, because, as I said to you early on, I think it'll be more of a physical game, and Kyogo's height might play a part in that as well. And it's a very, physical game. But nevertheless, I mean, he's a good sub to bring on.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like when Ange was in charge of Celtic, and you had Giacomakis and Kyogo. You had, the big guy and the wee guy. 99% of the time, the wee guy was starting the game, and then the big guy would come on, to sort of show things up or whatever. But there were occasions when Giacomakis got the nod, because even, Ange would have known that it was going to be a much more physical game. And then he would bring on Kyogo late in the game, and he would score the winner or whatever the case may be. And it's, as I said before, it's all about horses for courses. You pick your team based on who you're playing. And if you know the team that you're going to be playing are a very physical team, you don't want too many lightweights on the pitch. You want a bit of steel, and if that means that you have to put in Adam Ida for 60 minutes, then you put him in for 60 minutes. And then maybe, he's tired out the defenders a certain amount, and then you can bring in somebody like Kyogo who can buzz around about them, and maybe steal a wee yard and get a goal.
I believe we have got the team news for tonight's Borussia Dortmund Celtic game in the Champions League. So Reagan's got the team news.
Aye, so it's Michael's playing Johnson, Trusty, Scales, Taylor, McGregor, Engels, Bernardo, Maeda, Kyogo, and Nicholas Kuhn as well. Adam Ida's on the bench.
Maybe he's doing it the opposite way around. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Kyogo will be the guy that will have them running all over the park, tire them out, and then big Adam Ida can come in and muscle his way through. I mean, either way it'll work. But for me personally, I would have started with Ida. Because as Regan said earlier on, it's all about holding the ball up. And for all Kyogo's a super player, he's not really a guy that's going to hold the ball up for any real length of time for you.
Who's the subs, Regan?
I just want to come to you, James. Why do you think Brendan Rodgers is not playing Rio? He's playing Paulo Bernardo instead?
I don't know. Is the honest answer to that? It's not even the case that they're similar types of players.
Would it be for dig ball situations, James?
Possibly. I think Rio's maybe a wee bit pacier than Paulo Bernardo is, but then Paulo Bernardo, being Portuguese, will have a better understanding possibly of that European style of football. Maybe Rio's tired. Maybe he's got an injury or a slight knock. Who knows? I'm quite happy that Bernardo's playing. I think he's a super player. Always have done ever since he came last year.
Yeah. I'm just really, I'm glad to see the team that we've got, but I do feel like that in terms of, I do agree with what me and James were saying earlier, that I think Ida would offer that more holding the ball up type threat. I'm just going to bring up what Graham's put in. He's got the bench for us. Thank you, Graham. What do you guys make of the bench then?
Good strong bench. I think I'd be right in saying that if Luke McCowan comes on, it'll be the first time he'll have ever played in Europe. Never mind the Champions League. It'll be the first time he's actually played European competition in that sense. Yeah, it's a good strong bench. It's probably not that different from the bench that he would put out, if this was a league game. And the players that are playing tonight would be the players that were playing, in the league game. So it just shows you the strength that they have, and it's great to see Alex Valle there. I know he had a bit of a horror against Falkirk, but he did much better against St Johnstone. And I've seen him a lot in the La Liga games, and I think he's a super, super player. And once he's really up to speed, I think he'll give Greg Taylor a run for his money.
You can always tell the spreads and depths of your squad, James and Regan, by looking at the bench. And I don't think Celtic bench was that strong last season, but I think that was down to the signings. No disrespect to the signing Celtic had at that time, but the Benz tonight and the Benz is in the last couple of weeks at the beginning of the season is as strong as I've seen it for a few seasons, Regan.
Aye, and I think that's what Brendan Rodgers wanted. He referenced that last season in terms of when Kyogo was playing, there was nobody there to back him up. And that's why Kyogo was playing for a long time. And then he addressed that in January. And I want to get your opinion, James, on somebody on that bench. What do you make of Palmer? Because to me, it doesn't work hard enough.
This season in particular, he has been, to use a great Glasgow expression, ranked rotten. He was pretty good when he came last year. He started off really well. I don't know if it's that he thinks he's now comfortable there, but the fact that he should be looking to shove Dies and Maeda out the road, and there's no way that that's going to happen the way that he's playing just now. Whereas on the other side, Yang or James Forrest, could quite easily come in to replace Nicholas Kuhn. Whether he was injured or whether he just wanted to give him a bit of a rest. But you would think that it would be less likely that Palmer would be coming on to replace Maeda unless it was absolutely necessary.
Yeah, no, exactly. Pat, I think he scored 2 goals last season. If I'm remembering right there as well, but I think he's like flat to good sleeve when I speak to more Celtic fans. I wanted James's take on the Kuhn situation as well, because a lot of people were a bit disappointed with him last season, but that was down to his ill health and all that. But when you look at Kuhn, the last not the last couple of weeks, since the beginning of the season, do you not think he is like a new signing to Celtic?
He is. And again, that is, as you said, it's down to the fact that when he signed back in January, he had some health problems and, he'd lost quite a bit of weight and stuff like that. And he was struggling to kind of get into the team and stuff. And he's had that, pre-season with the team. He's built himself back up and he's starting to show the player that he is. And I'm sure a lot of Celtic supporters would have known that he was a player that could do stuff, but probably were disappointed, but without maybe really understanding, that the boy was having some health issues. But it is, I remember watching him during the pre-season games, and I thought, my God, if he can take that into the season proper, he is going to have a cracker of a season.
Reagan, what's your take?
I think he's been brilliant this season. I think you just need to look at the Falkirk match at Celtic Park. I mean, speaking to a lot of people that were there, they were saying that he can really come on and change the game, and I think that shows you that he's had a full pre-season under Brendan Rodgers, and he's proved that he's a good player, and he's proved that as long as you dedicate yourself and you're really good with what he's asking you, then Brendan Rodgers will he'll make you a better player, and that's what Brendan Rodgers enjoys. He enjoys developing talent and making them better.
James, on Saturday night, that was the second time I've heard the Celtic fans and Brendan Rodgers' name. Do you think that the fans has basically forgiven? Obviously, you're not going to please every football fan, because a football fan won't like the manager, won't like the captain, won't like the team women. That's how it goes in the west of Scotland. But do you think that they forgive him what he did to Celtic, and then coming back in and playing this style of football this season so far?
I think anybody who's fair-minded will have forgiven him. Personally, I don't think he was needing to be forgiven. What happened with Brendan Rodgers happens to clubs all over the world. Do you know what I mean? It's well documented. He wasn't getting the support that he was looking for. And I hesitate to say a bigger club, but a club from a bigger league who could offer him more money and could do stuff for him in terms of transfers came along, and he thought, right, I'm going to do it. Because at that point in time, he had the Invincibles there. He did the treble. To a certain extent, he'd done everything that he could possibly do with Celtic, with the exception of progressing in Europe. And I wholeheartedly believe that the only reason he came back was that was bugging him, that he never took Celtic forward in Europe. And if he does it this time round, whether it's into the last 16 or whatever, he will feel vindicated. But I always remember when he signed the second time round for Celtic, he said at the time, come back and see me in May. And by God, did he deliver. And a lot of the people who were against him throughout last season started to change, and then obviously winning the league and the cup, that was the thing that really sort of changed it. And the fact that the team this season is playing so well and he's brought in good players is making more people who were maybe doubting come back round to the way of thinking. But as you said, Michael, there are always going to be people who won't want to forgive him. I mean, I remember all the nonsense on social media, calling him all sorts of names and all the rest of it. I was disappointed when he left, like every supporter would have been disappointed. But I didn't blame him, And a lot of people blamed him for how Celtic imploded after that, And yeah, maybe if he had stayed to the end of the season, that might not have happened. But he was always going to leave at some point, I was a bit surprised he came back, I have to admit, because they do say that you should never go back, when you've been somewhere and you've been successful and you leave, you shouldn't go back again because, you might not be able to replicate it. But I think Brendan Rodgers is a good enough coach and manager to be able to do it. And I think he's proven that this season.
So that is the game tonight, Borussia Dortmund against Celtic at 8 o'clock. Thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for all your comments. Thanks to Reagan. Thanks to James. Have you back on again soon, because it was brilliant to have you back on the show. And we will be back at 10 o'clock with the reaction show. Thanks for watching, and see you soon.